Hello everyone! So, as most of you guys know, PvP mechanics in Albion Online contains a large learning curve if you want to be efficient during PvP scenarios. In this video, I will go over the different mechanics that you will experience, their counters and synergies, as well as some extremely useful tips and tricks when deciding on new types of builds that you want to try out. Spell types. There are quite a lot of spell types in the game, where they all can synergize with each other and have different effects depending on the combination. The list of useful spell types so far is Reflect, Invisibility, Invulnerability, Armor and MR Penetration, Crowd Control, Ability Bonus and Purge. Starting with the Reflects. This is what it stands for. It reflects damage back to the attacker. While there isn't that many spells out there which uses this mechanic, it is extremely powerful against high burst builds. More about this later. Invisibility. There are two types of invisibility. The first is a normal one that comes from the Assassin Jacket and the Invis potion. This Invis can get cancelled when you deal damage or activate abilities. The second one comes from the Undead Cape. In this one you can use spells and deal damage and it will not break the Invis duration. Invulnerability. This is another word for immortality. Simply put, you can't die. Armor and MR Penetration. These are in spells that reduces your opponent's armor and or magic resistance, which in the end makes them take more damage than before. Crowd Control. This includes stun, root, slow and knockback. These are more commonly used by tanks, gankers with catch builds or one-shot compositions in large or small-scale battles. Ability Bonus. This is what differentiates a tank from a cloth DPS. In reality, a tank has 0% ability bonus, and a cloth player generally have about 45%. The bonus increases the damage output in relation to the percentage shown on your stats page. Purge. This spell type removes all positive effects from an enemy, not including consumables. Synergies and counters. So now when you have gotten an idea of what the different spell types are, let's talk about how they synergize with each other. First, let's start with the Reflect. Since it is a spell that does damage, it can get a damage boost by adding some ability power into the mix. This is the build I will be using for this demonstration. The goal with this build is to maximize the amount of damage I can do when I'm reflecting and retaliating the damage back to my opponent. And since I'm using a crypt candle, the damage will get even greater since I have reduced reductions from my own side. So if we're talking pure math, the amount of damage I will reflect or give back to the attacker is 3 times the damage that they give me. And the most interesting part of this build that many people don't know about is that if you use a cleric robe with a hunter, you will still reflect damage even if you're so-called invulnerable. This in itself is quite odd, but I assume the game checks the damage received before it checks if you're immortal or not. And now you might be asking, how do I counter this? Good question, and the answer to that is to simply do nothing. Just don't touch him and he won't do any damage at all. Tips and tricks. The most important tip I always give players that are asking is to have patience when you are PvPing. If you have patience and making sure that you don't panic, the chance to win the fight increases by a lot. One way to implement patience into your playstyle is to analyze what your enemy are doing during the battle and then try to time your counters for their actions. In the clip that is rolling right now, yes, I am way overgeared than my opponent, but if we are looking only on how the spells are put out, you can see that I'm not using my abilities as soon as they go off cooldown. This is to make sure I place them at the right moment, for example right after the enemy has used an essential ability. Have you ever missed out on a kill because they went invisible and walked off your screen? This tip will help you with finding out which direction your enemy is going if their name tag is still visible. I know some people are having this trouble when the name tag is only visible for a second or two before the enemy is completely gone. So the idea is to spam one of your abilities or even the space key to trigger an auto-attack lock-on. This will make your character face the direction of where the enemy is going. If you have been walking around the zones, you might have noticed some deployable furniture laying around. Some people see it as decoration, but for gankers, this can be a tool towards securing the kill. Keep in mind that you will have to find the optimal environment to make this as effective as possible. So the idea is to make a traveler be forced to walk into the hostile mob's aggro range. This will make them lose gallop if they're hit, and the mobs that are aggroed will make a sound that can be heard before your name tag is visible for the enemy. This will give you time to go invis and then proceed with the gank. This is a really useful tip for the gankers out there. How many times have your targets gotten away because you didn't have enough mobility or sprint to catch up to them after they got dismounted? The dismount and remount timers are different depending on how you get dismounted. If your mount gets killed, the timer until you can mount up again will be 3 times as long than if you manually dismounted your mount. So when you kill another player's mount and they start running away, you can calmly wait for your mount timer to be available again. Mount up, run after them on your mount and then dismount on top of them. This way their sprint will be on cooldown and you will have an easier time killing them. One important thing that I want to point out is that if you're outnumbered or think that the matchup is uneven, try to bait out some defensive spells from your opponent. Then go for a real engage or combo 10 seconds later. Since most defensive spells have more than 20 seconds cooldown, this can ensure that you win the encounter. Ever since the Albion population increased at free-to-play launch, I've seen more and more players with builds that doesn't synergize at all. So when you're creating a build, try to have at least 2 items complement each other. This can for example be the cleric robe with the guardian helmet, which increases the healing output on the helmet when you take damage with the robe. I have as well gotten many questions about which build is good or best in PvP, and as an answer to that question I will say, the best build is the build that counters your opponent. Since there are such an extreme amount of combinations out there, you can never be sure what you will be up against. So by testing out builds that synergize with itself in a good scale, this will make it easier for you as a player to understand how to play around your opponent's abilities. Thank you for watching till end. If you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button and leave a like on the video. I will see you all next time.